Hello and welcome to another episode of Fractional Impact. Today we're speaking to Donna Owen, who is a sales and revenue leader who has spent more than 20 years building teams, creating go-to-market systems, and helping software companies achieve predictable growth. We'll be going into early signals that a sales team is stuck or misaligned, the process that Donna uses to build predictable pipeline, and what founders should do before hiring the first sales team, and more. Donna, would you like to introduce yourself?
Thanks, Stuart. Thanks for having me. Hi, everybody. As Stuart said, I'm Donna Owen. I am fractional CRO at The Engine, which is my company. And we help mainly early stage tech companies get from essentially founder-led sales into something that's more predictable and leave them with a sales motion that makes sense.
Awesome. And we're joined as well by Gianna Maliari as well, if you would like to introduce yourself, Gianna.
Yeah, thanks, Stuart. I'm part of the fractional clients team over with Stuart and all, and I help with all things sales and client relationships.
Hi, Gianna.
Hi, Donna.
So my first question for you, Donna, so that all of the listeners can get a deeper sense of who you are and what you've done. Tell us about what you've been doing over the last few years and how you got here in the first place.
Yeah, so I won't go back too far. What I'll say is that over the last kind of maybe 6-7 years, I've found a real happy place for myself in software sales. It took me a while to get there, but once I arrived, I knew that's where I belonged. Just love the whole product side of it, like getting involved in the product and finding out what's going on in the roadmap, just every element of it really, I just completely fell in love with. And that took me on a journey through a number of startups. And what I saw was, whilst each one was completely different and selling a completely different product, I saw a lot of synergies in the where the pitfalls were and why a lot of startups don't really get off the ground, and where they were making mistakes around building their first ever rev org, and started to fix that whenever I went into a new company, and then just had a bit of an epiphany a couple of years ago to say, well, why don't I help more founders who don't really have the revenue and the pipeline to be able to invest in a full-time CRO. I can go in, I can be flexible, I can give them the best of both worlds, essentially, which is someone who knows what they're doing, knows how to contribute to the number. I've been an IC not that long ago. I know how to do sales, but I can also provide that more senior ear in the board, and I can do so in a really flexible way. And so I thought, well, surely people are going to want that, right? So took a bit of a chance and tested it in a real life scenario, and it paid off. So we've been running The Engine now for a couple of years. I act as the fractional CRO, and what I've learned is that The Engine is a lot more than that. In order for us to deliver these outcomes that founders are looking for, you need more than a CRO. You need demand gen, and you need all of the things that kind of sit directly under that role. So I've been really lucky over the last couple of years to build some really strong partnerships with experts in the field who, again, would not necessarily be affordable to new founders or even visible to them, but they just have to call me, and I engage everybody that we need to deliver the project. There's no wastage. Everyone does their part of the project and then comes out and leaves the next to do theirs. And that's The Engine. So that's what's got us to be here today. And I very much enjoy my role as the fractional CRO in that. I have no intentions of just running the business. I want to be involved. I want to keep going into startups and making an impact.
Awesome. Yeah, that's a great summary. I would assume you work with companies that have all sorts of different goals and bottlenecks and challenges, and sometimes it can be difficult to know exactly what is the biggest bottleneck in your, in the sales side of a business. When you first start working with a company, how do you go about figuring out what the biggest challenge is to be fixed?
Yeah, it's a good question. And usually, well, I'd say in over 90% of the cases, the first answer is it's not where you think it is. So usually the problems that I'm brought in to fix aren't the problem that I end up fixing. A really good example of that is a lot of founders are frustrated because they've hired sales people, and they can't work out why they're able to sell, but the salespeople that they've brought in can't just mirror them, and they're not clones of the founder, and it's, I can do it, why can't they do it? And they think that's where their bottleneck is, or that's where their pain is. And actually they've just set those people up to fail. So, and in order to then set them up to succeed, we need to start building structure, process, demand, and all of the things that an A player, a fully fledged AE needs in order to be successful, but a founder doesn't always need. And so their needs are different. The things that make them successful are different. So often it's a case of, listening to the founder and saying, yeah, okay, where do you think the bottlenecks are? Where do you think the problems are? And then really slowly educating them to the fact that that wasn't the real problem in the first place. And more than likely they have a top of funnel issue. They're not having enough conversations. They're not building enough pipeline. Their little black book has run very dry. Their CRM is either not present at all, or it's useless. It's just a list of names. And these are the general things that we typically see when we go in. So we don't start off with completely blank canvas every time. I usually expect those to be one of the main issues, but it's rarely what they think it is.
Yeah, you touched on an interesting example there, which is going from founder-led sales to having that initial sales team. How often do you find that companies find that a struggling transition to make?
Every single time, and that's what pays my bills. So I'm kind of glad it's a problem. But yeah, it's the real, I think it's probably up there on the top 3 to 5 biggest problems that founders see. Now, the good news is that if you get to that point where you feel as though you're struggling to leap from founder-led sales into a predictable sales motion, it probably means you're doing all the right things. You've probably got money on the board at that point. If you're penniless, then that's not you're not thinking, oh, how am I going to get to a sales-led motion? You're probably the opposite. You're probably a bit swamped and have been buried in sales, which you might love, but you're also not working on the business. You're not looking at the product development. You're not doing all of the other things that you need to be doing because you're on deals constantly. So that's typically the problem that we see, that tells me that founders have left it a little bit too late to start the process of going to a sales team. But there's this thing of like, don't go early, don't go late. Most people do one or the other. So it's not about how I go in and stop them from going early or late. It's how do we mitigate now that you've gone a bit early or you've gone late. And if you've gone too early, the chances are that you've got potentially really good sales teams out there with no process and all of the things that they need to be successful. So we have to very quickly build that around them in order to get them up to speed, and that can be done. That's not a problem. If you've gone too late, you're probably firefighting, and you've got you've got deals that are just getting missed, and you're dropping plates everywhere, and you're quite frustrated working too many hours, etc. That's again easy to fix. We just have to put some structure in a team. And the good news in the second scenario is that you've probably also got a bit of cash lying around because you've got lots of deals. So that scenario, we can afford to hire top down. So you can bring in a CRO, a VP of sales, and have them then start to build a team around you. So whether they go early or late, both can be fixed. And that's what we tend to do rather than just identify to them what early or late means. Very, very. I don't think I've come across one founder yet that's just got that timing perfect, myself included. So
yeah. So if I'm if I'm a founder and I'm listening to this and I'm thinking maybe I should hire, my first sales team now, maybe I should wait, I don't know. What are the questions you would ask to help diagnose if now is the right timing, or they should have done it 3 months ago, or they should wait for a bit longer?
Yeah, mainly around pipeline. So we would look at, what is coming down the road. What are the conversations that you're having? What are the opportunities? What are the mistakes that you're commonly making? What does your infrastructure look like? So let's have a look at your sales decks, because if all this is very sloppy and shoddy, the sales team needs to catch up, and the process needs to catch up. If it's the opposite and the founder is saying, oh, I think I should hire a sales team, but I've got a couple of meetings booked in 2 months' time, and that's it, and it's all dry, and we've just bought Salesforce, but we're not logged in yet, then I think it's too early. Then we think, then I think actually bringing somebody in like me at that point is probably a good time to do it, because I can start to build that infrastructure around them, so that they can, when they do hire, they stick to my number one rule of hiring, which is always hire A players, and they're able to attract them because they will have that infrastructure. I think, and I like this about a lot of founders, but a lot of them are under the very quite complacent view that because they're building the next big thing, every salesperson, every good quality salesperson in the world is going to want to come and try and sell it, and that's not the case. If you look at the requirements of an A player in sales, they will in the interview ask about pipeline, they will ask about your inbound engine, they will ask about tools. That's not them being lazy, that's them having they know how they can deliver the most amount of revenue to you, and they know the tools that they need in order to succeed. And if you don't have all that stuff, you're not going to be able to attract them, which is why a lot of early stage founders end up with underperforming salespeople, because they've not been able to go after the right level of talent. So we can put all of that in. Now, if you were to hire a full-time CRO or VP of sales, that's also fine. They could do that, but then if it didn't work out, you're then stuck with a massive salary. So that's definitely something that we look at and consider as well.
Yeah, why is always hiring A players your number one rule? Because I know that there will be a lot of founders that don't follow that rule, and they'll maybe cheap out a little bit to save a few dollars or pounds here and there.
It's because it's never worked out when I've broken it. Never once. Never even. I've not even had one bit of luck with that. And you know what? I think I came from, my early stage career was in recruitment, which is, you could say, is also a sales role. In fact, it's a double sales role because you've got candidates and clients. I always like the client side though, and I don't know where I picked up this viewpoint from. It's funny, isn't it? How you go through your career and you whether it's leaders that you have, you kind of pick up their beliefs as you go along, and then you think you believe it until you're like, actually, no, who told me that is not true? And one of those things was that in every sales team, you need to have, like, say they've got a sales team of 5, you need to have like 2 like absolute rock stars, and then you need to have 3 plodders. And it's because your overperformers will be constantly banging on your door for more money, and they're just going to be a bit more ballsy and a bit kind of making more noise, and will always be a flight risk to you. But your safe bets, they're just going to keep just nearly hitting target each month. Oh, maybe next time. And they love you for keeping them. They're so grateful, and they're not going anywhere. That's the worst bit of advice I've ever had in my life. And I don't think founders should do that. Now, larger companies that do have sales teams of hundreds and hundreds of people, absolutely, you're not going to have 200 A players in your team. You're just not. It's not going to happen. It's unrealistic. And, if somebody's just about scraping 65-70% of target every month, they're not costing you anything. They're still contributing to the pot. So for a large company, you do you. But I think for founders and for startups, it's a bad move to try and carry anybody.
Yeah.
And for you, what does that A player look like, Donna?
Well, it's a really good question, Jana, because it's not, when I say A players, I'm not talking about somebody who's come from Oracle and is like, constantly at 2000% of target or anything like that. It's much more about how they craft a deal. That's, for me, it's a real A player who can craft a buying experience like no other. They come across as professional, they're very polished, they are obsessed with the thing that they're selling. So they don't just know how to sell it, they know how it works. They know the outcomes, every outcome that the product or the service delivers, and they get absolutely into the weeds of their ICP so that they are almost never surprised on calls, and they are disciplined. You don't have to ask them how much activity they've done. In fact, it would almost be ridiculous for you to do that, because you can see their diary and you know that they're so disciplined with their time. They block out their prospecting and their demos. Before every demo, there's like an hour of prep time where they're building their demo site to deliver the outcomes to the prospect. It's an amalgamation of little things like that. Obviously, you can't tell all of that in an interview. So you just need to look for the early signs. And the things I tend to look for, I think sometimes people sit down for an interview with me and they think I'm going to start drilling them on Medic. And I don't think I've ever asked a question about sales methodology in an interview. I find out, I assess how I would feel if I was about to spend 400K and this is the person that is presenting to me. And I try and look at them through that lens. And if I think they're going to create that amazing buying experience, then the rest we can work on. Anyone can learn Medic. My kids could learn Medic. I won't be in front of a prospect.
You used the 400K number. Is that kind of the number that you have to have in mind to get A-tier talent, or is it typically less?
Are you talking about, what do you mean, for an OTE or for ACV?
Yeah.
Okay. I have been accused of overpaying once. Someone actually spoke to me at a conference that I was at. They said, "Oh, Donna, we're looking to hire a couple of AEs. Like, what do you pay your guys?" And this was in 2019 or 2020, I think it was. And I said, "Oh, they're on a 100K base with double OTE." And she was like, "I cannot believe you pay your AEs 100K. You were way overpaying." And I was like, "Oh, really?" Because these two guys brought in 4.8 million ARR between them last year. So you don't need to get your calculator out to work out that. But, you'd have to be sensible about these things. If your ACV is $2,000, you guys aren't bringing in 2.4 million. So you do need to be a little bit sensible about it. I build commission calculators in a way that are incredibly transparent, and controversially, I send them to candidates as part of like their interview pack, because I don't want them to sit down with me and essentially kind of grill me about commissions. I want them to be very, very in the know about how it's calculated, and I work back from the OTE and show them how they could get there and how many deals they would have to do, and then we compare that to what the rest of the team are doing or what the company targets are. But I think depend if you've got an ACV of kind of 10K or something like that, you should be, you guys should be able to earn a couple of 100K for sure.
I think that's the recruiter in you reverse engineering that so that your candidates are well aware, and you're like, okay,
we're supposed to take a little bit of everything from each role that we have. We should always some sort of discipline or learnings, but I think that's what it is that transparency around salaries that I was always, as a recruiter, was very adamant I would lead with that, because I'd want to know, we love our jobs, but we all want to know what we're going to get paid. And I found that, and founders are terrible for this, by the way. They tend to be quite smoke and mirrors with their teams on what they're going to be able to earn, or they'll just throw out words like double OTE with no thinking around how they would actually get there. And it's like, well, if you're selling your product, or if you're doing like free trials, and then your product is cheap to buy because you're a startup, so you're doing the kind of lot of entry stuff, you need to think about that when you make your first sales hire. There's nothing more damaging, maybe an unhappy customer, but the second thing that's damaging to startups is people going around saying they screwed them over. Like, it's really damaging. And so you want to make sure that you pay your people properly, but don't then end up in a minus, so just do your sums early.
Yeah, interesting. Do you ever have a bit of a conflict or a power struggle between yourself and a founder that maybe wants to spend a bit less than you do on new salespeople?
Always. Yeah, I think what I like founders to do is to give me an overall budget, really, and actually things are changing. You know, we're talking about hiring and every successful sales team I've ever built in a permanent role has always been quite classic structure. So you've got SDRs, you've got AEs, you've got AMs, etc. I've had to learn quite a lot over the last 12 to 18 months because things are changing and I need to stay very, very current because I'm talking to new companies that are coming into the world of sales. So I need to have the most current information. And I try and stay in as many groups, and you guys put out quite a lot of really good content, and I try and stay close to Pavilion and various different groups just to make sure that I'm delivering the right version of what's new. And I do think the shape of the sales team is changing. I think that inbound, where it used to be a bit of a nice to have like nubbin, is now going to be the driver. And it's largely just because, well, we've mashed the outbound button too much and broke it because we went crazy on automation. So that's something that we have to deal with now. But I also think that information is so readily available and there's so much that a prospect can find out about you before they actually speak to a person, that you need to make sure that you're presenting yourselves and showing up, whether it be through AI, LLMs or whatever, or Google or however people find you. You need to make sure you're showing up in the best possible way. So actually, if I'm given a budget, I won't just immediately go to, okay, how many AEs can I hire for that? I'll start to think about shaping that in a different way. And the founders that I've worked with have been very kind in that they know that it's the right thing to do, but they have trusted me to say, okay, well, let's sit down and work out what that investment in go-to-market looks like. And there you go, spend it. And what may have started out as, okay, we've got enough for 3 people here, has in a couple of cases very recently ended up as 2 people and a content engine. Or 1 person and a marketing automation process with Clay and various other tools that we've invested in. So I think the best thing to do is, rather than think about your sales team in kind of heads, is to think about, right, okay, what are we investing, whether you've just got your investment or whatever, okay, how much of that was for go-to-market? Now, where do we slide our go-to-market chips? Let's not just straight away go into the old-fashioned way of, okay, we could definitely get a couple of decent SDRs for that and maybe an AE and an AM. Think about shaping that slightly differently. You might just need to really invest in your inbound engine, get a couple of born closers to create that buying experience that I spoke about at the beginning. So those leads that come in through that investment into content and demand don't just fall down the grid.
Yeah, you mentioned there that you spend a lot of time trying to stay up to date with, what's changing and what's happening now and stuff like that. And that's one of the things that I've seen a lot of fractional sales leaders fall short on. Like, we've worked with people and we try not to work with them. We talk to them and they're stuck in the 90s. Like, they don't know the new technology. They kind of try and rely on the foundations of sales and stuff like that. And that is, of course, important. But being up to date and modern and knowing new technology and stuff like that is super important as well. What do you think has changed over the past couple of years? Are there any trends in the modern sales world that you're picking up on?
Yeah, I think demand has had a completely... So when AI first showed its head, everyone was like, is it going to replace sales teams? And I actually went on a show not dissimilar to this, probably maybe 18 months ago. And that was one of the questions that they asked me. It's like, is AI going to replace sales teams? And I was kind of on the spot. They hadn't sent me this question before. And I was like, and I didn't know that much about ChatGPT or what was going to happen with sales. I used it personally, but I hadn't seen any impact on sales at the time. So I took a bit of a punt and I said, well, what I would say is, if you're an SDR right now, just be really good. And that was my answer to that question, whether it was good or bad. But actually, it's turned out to have been probably a good answer, because that's where we've seen more of the AI, the generative AI come in, is the very kind of further up the funnel, there's absolutely no way under the sun that any agent is going to start closing big deals anytime soon. So you closers out there can relax for a little while, but do what I said about SDRs 2 years ago. Just be really good. But yeah, I think that's been the biggest shift, in that now we are able to bring sales and marketing together properly through technology. So we used to have marketing and we used to have sales, and salespeople think that marketing people create their decks. They treat them as like they're their customer, and they're like, I need a deck for this, I need a deck for that, I need a deck for the other. Marketing probably think that salespeople are a load of overpaid, loud, whatever. So this is the relationship that has been probably the biggest head scratcher for CROs globally, is to kind of bring that together and get them actually having that mutual respect for each other, and also working in unison. Technology is now doing that job for us. So the lines have now completely blurred between sales and marketing, and you can build now through technology a really robust automation engine, which is using lots and lots of kind of video content. So you're very much kind of humanizing that. But the way that you now find prospects and really drill down into their intent and their signals, it used to just be, if you're selling recruitment software, they're a recruitment agency, they've got 50 seats, bam, I'm in. No, now it's okay. And they've just moved office. They've had a significant investment. We know they've got 2 years left a year left on the bullhorn contract. Like, you can go deep. And so this means that sales team's job now is to have more and more conversations, be really just drilling down into the ICP, feeding that back into the marketing engine, who can then scale up the level of noise and content that we're sharing with our ICP. And it shouldn't land in a way that annoys them, because they're our ICP, so it should look familiar to them. Just when you guys reached out to me and it was familiar to me, I was like, I'm a fractional CRO, yes, I can talk to these people. So that was making that whole experience much neater and tidier. And then the difference that technology has made, to go back to your question, is that we've now been able to prolong that relationship all the way through to when that person is ready to have a conversation with a human, because we can nurture them, educate them, have conversations with them through Gen I and WhatsApp and Meta, or however they like to be communicated with. And we can do all of that before we actually get the salesperson involved. So by the time the person is ready to speak to sales, they're so educated about what we do that it should be a super lovely, warm conversation. And that has really meant that sales and marketing have become one. And I'm seeing loads of CMOs going to CRO now as well, which it used to be the case that your CRO would come from sales. But now they can come from either sales or marketing, and both can really bring something amazing to the table, because they are essentially now one and the same.
Yeah, I think that's a great system, and I like the sort of style that you talk about around educational sales and stuff like that. One of your achievements is helping drive Vincere from 3 million to 12 million ARR. What were the primary decisions or shifts that mattered most in making that happen?
Right, it's been Cherry to start with, but every single prospect that I've ever worked with, that's always been the opener, actually. It's always been, you just fall right into my icebreaker. Well done. Yeah. So Cherry was, for me, we've all got that one role, haven't we, where that was the real turning point for me. Interestingly, when we first started to build the UK sales org, it was very scrappy, and we didn't have all of the processes and everything that I spoke about at the beginning that you absolutely need. We kind of broke the rule book a little bit there. What we did have was an amazing product and a team of people that I just described a second ago. Professional, charismatic, and create a brilliant buying experience. And so we had, if you imagine the perfect rev org being process and methodology and systems, great people, great product. We kind of lost one of those, but we got away with it because the people and product was so strong that the fact that we were on pipe drive and making it up as we went along didn't really matter. Now, for me, looking back at that retrospectively, I can then attribute that to a lot of the work that I do with clients now, because just to your point about CROs or fractionals, sounding like they're from the 90s, I found exactly the same thing when I network. I'm like, really? But I think that that kind of going through that has enabled me to go into a startup, and if they are scrappy, they're almost embarrassed by it, and I'm like, no, I've totally been here, and it wasn't that long ago either. So I don't make any judgment on that. I don't come in with my medic book and go, right, okay, you're absolutely terrible. I'm like, actually, tell me about your product, tell me about your people, because I've done this before. And once you add in the process and everything else, then it really flies. So yeah, we kind of bootstrapped our way through the first couple of years. And we did all the right things. We created this amazing buying experience. My sales team were so obsessed with the delivery and the quality of their demos. So we used to joke that when our competitors' sales teams were in their sales kickoffs, we were with the product team learning about the roadmap and getting ahead and being one step ahead with the product all of the time, because we can do the kickoff another time. Let's learn about the product. So we were very much product focused. And that really gave us the edge, because in that particular product, it was recruitment technology, and everyone was building a CRM back then. There was CRMs popping up. I felt so sorry for staffing firms. They would go to the recruitment agency expo and they would just be like hammered the whole time because everyone's building rec tech. And so it's very difficult to stand out. And whilst our product wasn't the best on the market, it was definitely up there, but it wasn't the best. So some of it was better than others, some of it was worse, and some was comparable. So the only thing that we could do to win every single deal was be the better seller. And so that's what we really honed in on, much more than the metrics, I'm going to be honest. That came later when we were getting ready for sale, because that's what we had to do. We had to start reporting, we had to start getting into the detail. And it was really only after the acquisition of Vincere to the Access Group that I was a bit miserable, to be honest, because this big bubble that I'd created and this job that I just loved just kind of disappeared overnight, and we were very corporate all of a sudden. And they were a fantastic employer, and I've nothing bad to say about them, but it's just not where I wanted to be, and that kind of cements the fact that I should be in startup. But I stayed, and the reason why I stayed was because they have a sales engine that is unbelievable. What they've built there is just, it's mind-blowing. It's the science of what they've done. And it's everything that we were not in the Vincere days. So they kind of had that missing part. So they don't have the best products or the best people, but they do have the best process by a million miles. So I was like, actually, let me stick around for a bit and learn how they do this. So I got really into RevOps and pre-sales and all of the things that I'd never really delved into deeply before, and learned how the mechanics and the kind of the robotics of an enterprise sell works, and really leaned into that and just went on a bit of a PhD for a year, and just loved every second of it. And then hopefully I've been able to take some of those learnings together with the other stuff that I've done and have a bit of an edge when I'm going into startups.
Yeah, you touch on some incredible transformations there, and I think probably one of your biggest selling points is because you have so much industry knowledge and because you have so much experience and knowledge of the mechanics of everything you're working with, it allows you to be so hands-on with the clients you're working with and the teams involved. What does the first 30 or 60 days look like with you when you bring on a new client?
Yeah. I like that the show is called Fractional Impact, because that's that kind of theme that I go for as well. When, because of what you mentioned earlier, fractionals have a certain maybe stigma around them, the same way as consultants. And I understand even more now, having been around more, and you know, there's always good and bad everywhere that you go. But I think that previously there may have been a misconception, certainly with CROs, maybe not in other fractional roles, but I'd take your guidance on that, guys. But certainly with CROs, that they're kind of washed up salespeople that haven't sold anything in bloody years, and you know, oh, don't go down that route, because you're just going to spend, you know, 1,500 quid a day, and then they're gonna leave with, like, they'll wash your hands of you, and you'll be none the wiser. You'll be back where you started. So that being the kind of general consensus in the market provides me with a brilliant opportunity to have impact, because that's the opposite of how I leave my clients. So I want to have impact within the first, 5 days, really, not even 30. I want to see some changes. So we start fixing stuff, and we start going for maybe some quick wins. Now, that's not always a good thing. That could be, you need to sack those 2 people over there, because these are conversations that, as a fractional, you have the I suppose, don't want to use a positive word about getting rid of people, but I wouldn't go into a new VP of sales or CRO perm role and go, right, we're getting rid of you 2. It would just not be the appropriate thing to do. You'd spend some time getting to know the team, etc. But I think as a fractional, you can have those difficult conversations really, really early, and that's one of the advantages that a founder should get. If you're not getting that from your fractional, then you need to look at who you're working with, because that should be, if you're looking at pros and cons of fractional versus perm, one of the absolute pros should be they'll just have the difficult conversations with you on day 1 or 2. They're not going to wait around for the first paycheck or for the probation to finish or whatever it might be. We get stuck here, we get our hands dirty, your baby's ugly, and we're gonna get some stuff done. So I make sure that we have those conversations quite early on. So often after 30 days, the shape of the team or the plan can have changed a little bit. And often we get the founders to take a bit of a hard look in the mirror as well, which isn't always the easiest thing to do as well, because we do get that conversation with, well, I'm the best seller in the world, why can't they just do it like me? And then you have to kind of unpick the fact that they might be the founder, but they're certainly not the best seller in the world, and they're not setting the team up for success. So yeah, I'd say over the first 30 days is kind of difficult conversations. Let's shake things up a little bit, and let's get the yucky stuff out of the way. By 90, we will have almost be wherever we need to be in terms of the outcomes that they've relayed to me in discovery. So that's something that I don't wait until I'm in a project to do discovery. I will always do deep discovery, 2-3 sessions sometimes before we start, so that we're ready to go on day 1 and we can start making some impact. So whatever those outcomes are, and unless it's exceptional circumstances, it's a 12-month contract for whatever reason, I only like to be in a company 3 to 6 usually. So after 3 months, we should be pretty much there. And for 2 clients that I'm working with at the moment, that looks like they don't have a marketing team, and we're going to build a marketing team over the next 90 days, and we're about to deliver those things. So it will be whatever their outcomes that they've relayed to me are. We should be way on track by 90 days. And if it's a 6-month contract, we'll be at least halfway.
Is that a common piece of advice that you find yourself repeatedly giving to multiple clients, multiple founders, or is that like a repeated action item that you find yourself always resorting to within that short time frame?
Yeah, add it to the CRM. Is the most common one. I'm like, oh, is that documented? I'm constantly getting them to just leave me some breadcrumbs. That's the main thing, is like, that was awesome. Can you write it down? Or what did you do? Or can you share that deck? Or, yeah, I know you sent the proposal on DocuSign, but can you give it to me so I can get it into a template? So what I'm doing is with a founder, because these guys are amazing. They kick ass, right? They're so good at what they do. I just want to get into their brains, and I just want to get those breadcrumbs so that either myself or a sales team that we bring in, or AI, however we're going to deliver this, we know what good looks like. We know how they can win. But often they know they win, but they don't know why, and they don't know what won a deal. They often have bad habits as well, which we need to get out before we bring people in. So things like celebrating deals before they are signed is one of the most common ones as well. So there's that maybe being the party pooper in the room saying, okay, that's great, it's good news, but let's celebrate when the signature comes. So those are the two main things is, can you give me some breadcrumbs and documents, and let's create good habits that are going to become the culture of the team. So when you bring people in, that's how we train them. So we don't bring in little clones of the founders who come in with all these bad habits.
You said something that stuck out to me. You said about how you typically like to work with companies for 3 to 6 months. I thought that was interesting because a lot of the fractional CROs or fractional VP of sales that we've spoken to and worked with, they typically stick around for longer because it takes them a longer amount of time to make an impact. You're saying that you can usually create most of the impact you want to create within the first 90 days. How do you find that's possible? What do you think you might be doing compared to other fractional sales leaders that are taking a lot longer to create an impact?
I'll be really brutally honest, it's really hard work. It's just going at twice the speed as I'd go if I was perm, which suits me because that is, for anyone that's watching this that knows me, I'm 100 miles an hour. And when I was thinking about embarking on this journey, the amount of people that said to me, well, yeah, do that because you want to get more time for you and you want to get more time with the family and the dogs and everything else. And I do want that stuff, by the way. I'm not a workaholic. I do enjoy, I've got a really nice balance. I've got a very happy life. I've got 5 dogs, 3 kids. And so I'm not a, work. But it surprised me at how many people think that this is a choice that you make so that you can be having coffee with people at 10 o'clock in the morning and not being at work. I work every hour that I did when I was perm, plus probably another 15 to 20 a week. And for me, that is what I need to do to make this thing successful and to stand out and be a better choice for a company rather than hiring a perm person, because I need to be better. So that's why, I suppose, is that it's just relentless hard work. There's no science to it.
Yeah, I love that. That's brilliant. One of your biggest kind of value adds for companies is helping them raise their valuation through, building a better go-to-market system and stuff like that. For founders that are thinking of selling or they're preparing for investor conversations, what do investors actually want to see in a go-to-market engine?
Yeah, it's an interesting one because people get this, they think that investors want the fanciest deck, so they spend so long on the decks. Like, actually, I've had people reach out to me and say, can we pay you to do our investor deck? I'm like, really? Heard of Gamma? Like, you can do your own investor deck. What investors want to see is predictability, safety, something different, just something that is going to be attractive to an acquirer one day, and just that kind of, okay, what does this thing look like in 12, 24, 36 months time, and why? I do some angel investing myself, and these are the questions that I ask. I don't care what their deck looks like. I care about the product, the ICP, the how sensible linking the two is. Like, is this an ICP with longevity, and are they going to want to buy this thing in 12, 24 months time? How much are you going to need to change it to stay? The concern with AI is, like, everyone's building all these fancy AI products, which are great, but it's like, how have you thought about the level of investment you're going to need to keep up with the Joneses there? So things like that. I'm a product person at heart. I love product, and that could be, even when I go into a service business, I think of that as the product that they're building, and that's where my real passion is. So those are the questions that I ask as an investor. And obviously, depending on whether you're talking to like angels who will be more interested in like the people and the future and the values and all of the mission and all of that stuff, that's really important as well. If they're slightly more metric driven, then obviously they're going to need to know about the predictability and the revenue org that you've built there. So if I'm talking to a customer or potential client where the outcome that they want to deliver is okay, they want to go for Series A in 12 months time, then yes, we absolutely work on getting everything into HubSpot. Very, very easy to report on. So you can just fire out reports, forecasting all nailed, really getting into things like your cost of acquisition, your CAC, your lifetime value, constantly having that as an evergreen metric, which you know at any one point. So if I go, what's your CAC to LTV? They can tell me today what that is. That's the stuff that is really going to get you to the next stage of investment. So it depends on what round you're looking at, but it's very rarely just a fancy deck.
Yeah. To close off then, if a founder or a CEO is listening to this and they're thinking, you know what, Donna sounds fantastic, but I'm not sure if we need her or not, and I don't want to waste anyone's time. What would you say to them? Like, what situation should they be in? What type of person or company should they be for it to be a great decision to get in touch with you today?
I think if you're building something, we should chat anyway, because the most important thing to me is conversations and connections. I run a podcast called Founder Stories, where I essentially interview my ICP, 5 times a month. And I've got them there in a room, in person, and I have an hour of unadulterated time with my ICP. I've had 0 sales conversations with them. I love to learn from them, because without those learnings, I can't create any content. I can't be relevant to the market. And so I would be very happy to impart any of the bits of knowledge that I have in a conversation with anybody without trying to sell my services to them. I am just one person, so I only have a small amount of time. So I've got the luxury of not having to bring on lots and lots of clients at once. So have a conversation with me, and I promise not to ram my services down your throat, but hopefully just to impart a little bit of knowledge in return for a little bit of yours about how you're finding building a business right now and the challenges that you're facing, because that's gold to me. The education is really important and will hopefully allow me to stand out as a decent fractional. So yeah, awesome. Just get in touch. I'd love to have a chat.
Yeah, well, if you're a founder, get in touch with Donna and steal some free value.
I want some back though. I want some value back. I want some knowledge.
What's the best way to get in touch with you to make that happen?
Email address is there. Obviously, LinkedIn is my weapon of choice, if you will. So reach out on LinkedIn. There's some links on there that you can book a call directly, 15 minutes. That's free forever and will always be free. And someone used it actually yesterday and just booked a call with me. We had a lovely old chat. He's building 2 products at the moment, and I sent him on his way with a bit of advice, and it was lovely. Email address is there as well if you prefer that. We can have a chat about getting you off email, and also if you want to listen to the podcast, it's available on. There's the Apple Podcast link there. If you prefer Spotify, it's on there as well, so you can go on and find it. It's called Founder Stories by The Engine. Also on YouTube as well. If you prefer, if you're more of a watcher than a listener. Personally, I prefer to listen, but each to their own. But yeah, lots of ways to find me. I can't hide it anywhere.
Fantastic. Gianna, any closing comments or questions?
No, thank you so much, Donna. I'm not even a founder, and I feel like I need to hire you for something.
Thank you so much, Gianna. It's been lovely to work with you as well. Thank you so much.
Awesome. And for the viewers and listeners, thanks for tuning in, and see you in the next one. Bye.
Have a great weekend, everyone.